if I'm going MVP, it just has to be Vetheo. Like we said it on other shows. I still have the same opinion. If you're, think about this. Misfits had one more loss than Fnatic. Fnatic only had one less loss than Misfits. How many fucking times did Vetheo carry this team from like unwinnable situations? Like
absolutely. This
guy definitely deserves the MVP. I mean, that's the bad thing about playing on a super team. If you're playing on a super team, unless your team is like 18-0 dominating the fucking split, you probably don't get an MVP on one of those rosters. How can you be the most valuable when there's so much value? Like the way I consider it is like, out of your team's like value, what percentage of that is coming from a player? That's how I'm viewing the most valuable player.
Yeah.
If the whole team is predicated on your success and you do that and you're able to carry the team, I mean, it has to just be a Vetheo MVP for me. I don't think there's any question.
Yeah, for me, like, look, I normally am someone who says, like, it's very rare there should be, like, a pure consensus, like, because essentially, in cases like this, like picking MVP, we are also going on, like, personal preference, you know, like the discussion we just had about ADCs. People can understand from that discussion why back in the day I preferred Forgiven over Reckless. It's obviously, it's not to do with who is playing better for their team, because actually, spoiler, they were both playing correct for their teams, if you look at who they used to play with, and they had their teams built around them in different ways. But the point is, it depends on what style you prefer. So my issue is this, right? Normally, I would say you have to open it up. You have to put in, like, obviously, Larson, Hillis, all the names go in. The problem is this, Dom, is I actually think Vetheo has one of the most ironclad MVP cases I've ever seen in a Western region. And the reason why is this, right? I'm personally not a huge fan of what's called the wins over replacement method, which is kind of what you were alluding to there, which basically what people do is they say, well, if I took Opset out of Fnatic and I put, like, let's say Neon. Let's say I put Neon instead of Opset, right? Would Fnatic still win most of their games? Yeah, probably most. They'd probably still at least win 80% of them, right? They'd probably still be a top team. There might not be that much different. Whereas obviously it goes without saying, if I take out fucking Vetheo and pick whoever you think's a mid-table, like Nuke Dog. If I put Nuke Dog instead of Vetheo, they probably win half as many games, right? If you do that approach, generally, I think like there is a logic to that, but I personally think at the end of the day, it is like the most valuable player, or you also have to use your eye test. Like that can only work in a sense. You have to also in the game see the amazing performances. That's where Vetheo's nailed it, dude. Because not only in the game does his eye test check out like a motherfucker, almost with no exaggeration, almost every single game this split, he was the best player on Misfits, if not in the whole server, no matter who they were playing. And then as you just said, here's the difference. If his team just crept into playoffs, but he was the only reason, I might be able to say, like, yeah, but you know, like, blah, blah, blah. Someone else didn't have to do that because their team's good. The difference is, as you say, they won one less game than Fnatic. And yet this guy, we know, did basically almost everything in all the games. So, like, in that case, that's the most extreme example of one man, just by every metric, hard carrying I think I've seen in years and years and years. Because, as you say, like, if you think of past years, even when, like, Cap's hard carried, yeah, but he hard carried on an amazing team. Like, that was impressive because he was on an amazing team. But this guy, like, if people don't get it, here's the best way to say it. I think it is almost impossible what this guy has done this split, as in to win 12 games. Like, the idea you could win 12 games with the teammates he has, I think it's mental, mate. Because I think you've even seen it in the game. You can't ban this guy out. People have tried. People have tried adapting, like, right, well, it's just these champions, like, you know, like, obviously last year, like, it's just as a Carly, like, this year there'll be some shit, it's just to get that. It doesn't matter, mate. The guy has the widest champion pool. Doesn't matter what you put him on. Like, as you said about the Neon example, I'm with you, by the way. If I was playing against Neon in a best of 5, I'd be very, very cynical and go, sorry, mate, in your team, there's only you and Vetheo, so I'm banning Jinx every game against you. You find an answer for that. If you do, maybe I open it up again, but until you do, no Jinx for you. The difference of Vetheo is there's no champion he can do that with. This guy's just busted.
Oh, I mean, look at this. So I have right now the amount of champions he played. He played 11 unique champions. He played Sylas, Yasuo, LeBlanc, Victor, Akali, Syndra, Cassio, Zoe, Orianna, Ryze, Corki. The most games he had on a champion was 3 on Sylas, and then everything else is either wild. 2 or 1. Like, he's playing every champion in the game. He had one of the highest amounts of kills ever. He almost hit the 100 kill mark, which has only been done like 4 or 5 times in the history of LEC. So it's like, come on, man. Like this, what else could this guy do? I mean, he's literally smurfing in the LEC. And like the thing that's so crazy is when you look at Misfits, where would you rank Mersa and where would you rank Herit in terms of overall strength? Like I would say Neon, honestly, like his performance was really good towards the end there.
Yeah.
I could go as high as seeing him being second. I could never put him above upset.
No.
But I think that there's an argument you could make for better than anyone outside of upset. You could put him second. I think you might be able to put Neon second right now. Where would you put Herit? Herit had a fucking bad split.
I would no joke.
He
would be like 7th or 8th for me or something, dude. Like, he'd be pretty low down, I'm pretty sure.
I'm 100% with you. It would be 7th or 8th over there. Where would Mercer go? Similar spot.
Maybe 10th or 9th, I think. It'd be pretty low down, I have to say.
Yeah, and Schlatten is like good on.
He maybe got better towards the end of the split, I thought. He's starting to get his shit together towards the end, I thought. Yeah. Still not a monster, though. Still no monster for sure.
I mean, look, he played 8 games of Lee Sin. This guy played 8 games of Lee Sin. He looked like a completely different player when he's playing Xin Zhao.
Yes. Yeah, that's
so,
true.
like, 13 of his games are on Lee Sin and Xin Zhao. I think that in playoffs, we can go into, we're talking about Misfits right now, so we can go into my next take, which I don't think that Misfits is going to win one series in playoffs. I think they will not win a series. I think they'll lose the first series. I think they'll lose the second series. They'll be out. That's it. I don't think.
It is worth saying, just for context for people who don't think this through. Remember, depending on where you are in the playoffs, winning a series isn't always the goal. As in, if obviously Vitality beats XL, they'll technically have won a series, but they could just go out in the very next match. Whereas obviously the problem Misfits have is, because they're third in the league, they are going to basically probably only play really good teams at this point, right? So I agree. It's plausible. Yeah, there's a world where that happens, Dom. Because the real issue is this, right? If you look at this team, in one game they can be good. This team can't do it. Like, as a team, they can't be good 3 games in a row. And the best of 5, you might have to play 5 games. Like, I agree with you. I don't know. If you look at the top teams they're going to play, so realistically, they're going to play, like, probably Fnatic, and then after that, who knows?
They play Rogue. They play Rogue first round.
Right, there you go. So they play Rogue first. If you lose that, they would then be, like, the team that's playing in the third, fourth match, right?
So the way it would work is if they lose, so most likely scenario is that they lose and G2 loses.
Yes.
Right. So XL versus Vitality play each other. Whoever wins moves on.
And plays G2, right?
They will play G2 if G2 loses to Fnatic because G2 is the lower seed. So then G2 will play against XL or Vitality. I think G2 is probably going to win versus either of those teams, right? Then you have G2 playing against Vitality in that match. I think that they're going to lose that. So I think that, Vitality, I just don't see them winning a series. I think that it's such a massive overperformance if they're able to win one series. I think that most likely they're just going to go 0-2 out of playoffs. And I think that it's really telling when you see the fact that they finished over G2 and Rogue didn't even think twice. And Rogue has looked really good against G2. So, like, matchup-wise, you'd think that Rogue would be really willing to play against G2. They pretty much shit-stomped them both the games they played them this split. And even though G2 is a lower seed and they look good against G2, they still pick Misfits.
Yeah, that was actually something that was weird in itself. Obviously people will say some of the Rogue players historically always did bad against G2, but I also thought that was whack, dude. But I get it. Like, I get the angle as to why, because essentially what you're implying is Rogue just thinks Misfits can't win. And by the way, as you just said, I'm inclined to agree, because the problem here as well as this, here's another thing that unfortunately is a bit of a dampener, because it's going to be the only reason people want to watch Misfits. Here's the dampener, boys. It's too much to expect that Vetheo actually does this in the playoffs in a whole series, because at the end of the day, like I just said, I actually think what he did individually this split is almost impossible. Like, I've seen very few players ever have a team this bad, this discoordinated, this like fresh in terms of some of the rookies, but this good game to game to game. In the playoffs, I wouldn't blame this guy if he has like a bad game, finally, or he just has a game where, the pressure's big and he just plays okay and then they lose the game. That could happen. It's not unreasonable. That's easy to happen, in fact. Let's be real. It's harder to play in the playoffs.
Yeah, and also people's mentality around Misfits is going to be like very decisive in this series. Like, I think Rogue is going to go into the series. They're going to have Larson playing his control mages and they're going to be like, yeah, just don't die to him. Like, Larson can play to not die in a mage versus mage matchup. You can't, like, you have to have threats other places on the map. If Herit is still running it down, if Herit doesn't step up, he's still running it down. Lee Sin is banned. Schlatten is just not as good because of that. Mercer is still, like, he's a rookie. Like, I have nothing against Mercer. I know that we often...
No, I agree as well, yeah. He's just fresh, that's all.
He's fresh. I don't think that there's anything... He's not like somebody who I want replaced or anything.
No.
Like, but he's just not one of the best supports in the league right now. That's factual. If he doesn't step it up, Herit doesn't step it up, how easy is it going to be for Larson to just take his hands up? Oh, I'm just not going to do anything. Oh, I'm just farming. Veteo's going to be farming. Larson's going to be farming. Rest of the map is on fucking fire. Game is lost.
And they've got comp to match him in the team fights anyway, so I agree. I don't see where the edge can be for Misfits. They can't even be the Vetheo. I mean, let's be real. Even Vetheo, to some degree, is matched. They've got one of the other MVP candidates from fucking mid lane playing in his lane. Like, I agree, mate. Like, if you look at the... Rogue is almost a team designed to beat Misfits. Like, at the end of the day, Hirit not only hasn't been good, but, like, good luck fucking smashing Oduam mid lane. The guy's made his whole career off just being surviving in fucking playoff series in top lane. And then, as you say, like, Jungle goes over, at the moment, probably goes over to the side of fucking Rogue. Like, what edge do you have if you're Misfits? So I have to say as well, like... It sounds sad because, like, put it this way, here's the real problem I have. I almost have like a feeling that what I predicted is actually what's going to happen as well. That you'll just find that the Vetheo can't be a superhero and carry all the games. He'll just have like one or two that are bad, or they'll be down 0-2 and they'll just give up a game easily or some garbage. Unfortunately, I feel like the success for them was the placing in the regular split like that. No one expected that. I don't think they can translate that though, because this is the problem, right? I mean, obviously Rogue had this for many years. Winning best of ones against a different opponent in every game is very different from playing 5 games potentially in a row against one opponent. It's such a different skill set. Like, you have to reset the filters as to what makes you a good team. How do you win? What's your identity? What are you going to do to adapt? Like, there's just so many questions for Misfits. I don't think they have any answers, to be fair. They just have Vetheo. So all hail Vetheo.
They can't have answers unless Hirit steps it up. Like, Hirit is going to have to start playing like he did last split, where he's just not dying so much randomly in lane. Like, this guy, he's dead so often, man. Like, this guy is just running it down so often this split. And I think that the other thing that happens is teams, like, they're going to have a week to prep for both of the Misfits matches. Like, both Misfits opponents have a full week to prep for them.
That's true.
Because they're not going to be in one of those situations where, like, if they're in the upper bracket, they're only playing one game that week. Next week, they are one best of 5 that week. Next week, they have their next best of 5. So a team is going to have all their focus on them. Whereas up until this point, the prep will be on like 2 teams in a week. And Misfits is normally not the team that you're going to be like hard fucking prepping for. Like, it's like, oh shit, we're playing against Fnatic this week. Oh, we're playing against Rogue this week. We're playing against G2 this week. It's very rare that Misfits was the focal point of a team's week where it's like, okay, we got to make sure that we neuter them, which is part of the reason why I think Neon got so many games of Jinx, is because people weren't really honing in on like, how are we going to beat Misfits? Like, what do we need to do to beat Misfits? So, I mean, I think we pretty much went over this enough now, but I just think that it's really, really hard for a team to prep for Misfits for a week that's the caliber of Rogue or even G2 or Fnatic and lose to them. I don't see how.
I'll also just chuck in there that obviously the main feather in the cap for Misfits is the placing. Like, wow, we were 3rd and we were 1 game behind Fnatic and 2 behind Rogue. Yeah, you also had 2 of the most egregious throws seen in fucking years happen in this split. Like, if we took those wins off them, which, listen, might sound unfair, but remember, for Vitality and Fnatic, I'm pointing out when they throw games, or they almost throw games, that they still win. Mm-hmm. So if you take those wins off them, and realistically Misfits becomes like the 5th team, the 4th, that's more where the team actually is, basically in line with what we're saying. The real problem Misfits have is this: in a mad world, they actually might, if they wanted to do something in the playoffs, have been better off coming 5th or 6th and playing the first game, and they could have had 1 series they might have been able to win and sort of like build some fucking story off. Whereas, yeah, as I said, the problem is they're not going to get to play the last place team, probably.
Yep, they're not going to play probably the last 2 place teams. They're just going to end up, I mean, unless Fnatic lose to G2 or, one of these bottom tier team or the bottom teams in playoffs, the 5th, 6th seeds, ends up beating G2 in that 4th, 5th place match. I mean, they're just getting 4th. Like, Misfits is just getting 4th, which is what Rogue thinks they are. Rogue thinks they're the 4th team. Rogue chose them for a reason. So
yes.
Yeah, there we go.
And I would trust them since they're the team that supposedly like has all the fucking scrims on lock and knows all that shit. So yeah. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.